In the world, there are people who work their entire lives for money, and there are people whose money gradually starts working for them. The difference between them is not only talent, and not even only education. The difference lies in understanding the economic mechanism of capital creation. Because large money almost never appears from hard work alone, it appears when a person creates value, scales it, controls assets, and uses the power of compounding. And today we will break down how large money is actually created, why a salary almost never makes people truly wealthy, how capital works, and why some people grow their wealth exponentially while others remain in economic survival their whole lives. This is not motivation. This is economics. So, let's begin. Most people think that wealth is simply a large amount of money. But in economics, wealth is something different. Wealth consists of assets that generate income, increase in value, or produce new assets. That is why an expensive car does not make a person wealthy, but a share in a business can. The main principle of creating large amounts of money is this: capital grows faster than labor. This is one of the most important patterns in modern economics. How does labor work? A person has time, energy, and physical and mental limitations. This means income from labor almost always has a ceiling. But capital is different. Capital can scale, be replicated, be invested, automated, and generate new capital. That is why a factory can operate 24/7, software can be sold to millions of people, stocks can grow for decades, and a business can generate income without the owner's direct involvement. Why salaries do not create great wealth? Even a very good salary is not a mechanism for building large capital. A salary is an exchange of time for money. You work, you get paid. You stop working, the money flow slows down or disappears. The problem is that every person has limited time, limited energy, and only a limited number of hours in a day. Even if someone is highly talented, their income is often still tied to their personal involvement. Now let's look at how big money actually works. Large wealth is usually created when a person owns something that can operate without being directly tied to their time. For example, a business, a company share, a platform, a brand, investments, software, or intellectual property. The difference is this: an employee sells their labor, while an owner controls a system that scales. And when the system grows, the owner's capital grows with it. That is why in the modern economy, the biggest fortunes are created through ownership. For example, imagine two people. The first has a very high salary, but all of their income depends on their work. The second has created a product or business used by millions of people. The first can live very comfortably, but the second gains the advantage of scale. Their system can grow, without a proportional increase in work, without additional time spent, and even while they sleep. That is why the digital economy has changed the world so dramatically. The internet has made it possible for one video to reach millions of views, for one app to serve the entire world, and for one brand to sell globally. Now, one person or a small team can create enormous economic value. And that is why today, ownership often beats labor, and assets often grow faster than salaries. What is the secret of scaling? It lies in the huge difference between linear income and scalable income. Linear income is when the more you work to get later. Linear income is when the more you work to get later, and scalable income. Now, scalable income is a system that is created once but generates income millions of times. For example, a YouTube video, a book, software, an online course, a platform, or intellectual property. That is why the digital economy has created so many billionaires, because the internet has drastically reduced the cost of scaling. In the past, global business required factories, offices, and thousands of employees. Today, one person can create a product used by millions. One of the most important concepts in building capital is leverage. Leverage means using tools that increase the output of human effort. There are several main types of leverage. 1. Financial leverage. Using money to create more money. For example, investments, businesses, and real estate. 2. Technological leverage. Technology allows one person to influence millions. That is why programmers, platform creators, AI companies, and tech entrepreneurs can generate enormous economic value. 3. Media leverage. The internet makes it possible to scale ideas, audiences, reputation, and trust. Today, a personal brand is an economic asset. 4. Labor leverage. When a person builds a system where other people work. That is how companies are built. Poverty is often linear, while wealth is exponential. Why? Because capital has the ability to grow on its own. If a person invests, reinvests, accumulates assets, and does not consume all of their income, then the most powerful force in finance is activated: compound interest. At the beginning, growth looks slow, but over time, the system starts to accelerate. That is why the first million is the hardest, and after that, capital begins to pull itself forward. The main mistake most people make is that they focus on income instead of assets. They ask, how can I earn more? But the real question is, what will generate money without constant involvement? Economically wealthy people often think not like employees, but like system owners. They ask questions like, what can be scaled? What can be automated? What can work without me? Which asset can grow for decades? Now let's move to the question, how is personal capital built? Personal capital usually goes through 4 stages. Stage 1. Human capital. At the beginning, a person has only skills, knowledge, time, and energy, so the first asset in life is competence. Stage 2. Financial surplus. Then, a person starts earning more than they spend. A surplus appears. This surplus becomes the fuel for investment. Stage 3. Asset accumulation. Next, the surplus is converted into stocks, businesses, real estate, intellectual property, or digital assets. Stage 4. Self-sustaining capital. At this stage, assets generate income. Income buys new assets, and the system begins to reproduce itself. This is where financial independence appears. Why does the modern world distribute money so unevenly? Because the technological economy has one key feature: winner-takes-most dynamics. In other words, the best platforms, the strongest brands, and the most efficient systems can capture global markets. One company can serve billions of people. As a result, capital becomes concentrated and inequality increases. That is why the digital era has created an extraordinary number of billionaires. Big money is not about luxury. This is an important idea because real capital buys time, freedom, resilience, the ability to take risks, and control over one's own life. That is why the richest people in the world often continue investing, creating, and building companies even when they no longer need money for consumption. Because capital is not just about material things, it is about influence. So, large money is rarely created through labor alone. It is created when a person creates value, owns assets, uses leverage, scales systems, and allows capital to grow over time. That is how personal capital is formed. And perhaps most importantly, the economy of big money is not magic, and it is not a secret reserved for the chosen few. It is a system of incentives, assets, scaling, and time. And the people who understand this earlier than others start playing a completely different economic game. If you enjoyed this lesson, subscribe and stay tuned. See you in the next videos.